What if I told you that the very rejection that shattered your world was actually the catalyst that forged your transformation into something far more powerful than you ever imagined? That every moment of isolation, every betrayal, every door slammed in your face wasn't punishment, but preparation. Welcome back to Official Sigma Male, where we dive deep into the untold truths that separate the extraordinary from the ordinary. Today, we're exploring something that will fundamentally change how you view your past struggles. The truth that created Sigma Man: rejection, isolation, and ascension. Most men run from rejection. They fear isolation. They see these experiences as failures, as evidence of their inadequacy. But what if everything you've been told about these experiences is wrong? What if rejection isn't your enemy, but your greatest teacher? What if isolation isn't loneliness, but liberation? The Sigma Male doesn't emerge from comfort zones and easy victories. He's forged in the crucible of rejection, tempered by isolation, and refined through experiences that would break lesser men. While others seek validation from the crowd, the Sigma discovers something far more valuable in his solitude: himself. This isn't another feel-good story about turning lemons into lemonade. This is the raw, unfiltered truth about how the most autonomous, self-reliant, and powerful men on Earth are created. We're going to explore the 6 critical phases of this transformation, from the initial shock of rejection to the ultimate ascension into Sigma consciousness. If you've ever felt like an outsider, if you've been rejected by groups you thought you wanted to join, if you've spent nights questioning your worth, then this message is specifically for you. Because what you're about to discover will reframe every painful experience as a necessary step in your evolution. The awakening through rejection. The journey into Sigma consciousness doesn't begin with triumph. It begins with devastation. Picture this: you're standing at the edge of what you thought was your world, watching everything you believed about belonging crumble before your eyes. The group you desperately wanted to join has just made it crystal clear: you don't fit. The woman you thought understood you has chosen someone else. The career path you mapped out has led to a dead end with a door marked "Not for you." This is the moment most men break. This is where the weak retreat into bitterness, where the average accept defeat, where the beta doubles down on trying harder to fit in. But for the future Sigma Male, this moment of rejection becomes something entirely different. It becomes an awakening. Let me share the story of Marcus, a software engineer who spent 3 years trying to break into the inner circle at his tech company. He attended every happy hour, laughed at every joke, modified his personality to match what he thought they wanted. The harder he tried, the more distant they became. When the promotion he'd been promised went to someone with half his skills, but twice the political connections, Marcus felt the crushing weight of rejection. But instead of trying harder to fit in, something clicked. He realized he'd been auditioning for a role in a play he didn't even want to be in. This is the first critical distinction of Sigma awakening. Rejection reveals misalignment, not inadequacy. When the crowd rejects you, they're not saying you're worthless. They're saying you don't belong with them. And for the emerging Sigma, this becomes the most liberating realization possible. The rejection that creates Sigma consciousness operates on multiple levels. First, there's social rejection, being excluded from groups, friendships, or social hierarchies. Then there's romantic rejection, experiencing betrayal, abandonment, or being overlooked for someone who seems to offer less, but somehow gets more. Finally, there's systemic rejection, being passed over by institutions, organizations, or structures that reward conformity over competence. Each type of rejection serves a specific purpose in Sigma development. Social rejection teaches you that group acceptance isn't worth sacrificing your authentic self. Romantic rejection shows you that seeking validation through others is a losing game. Systemic rejection reveals that playing by rules designed by others will never lead to true success. But here's where most men get it wrong. They interpret rejection as a call to action to change themselves. The future Sigma interprets rejection as information about incompatibility. Instead of asking, "How can I make them accept me?" the awakening Sigma asks, "Why did I want their acceptance in the first place?" This shift in questioning is revolutionary because it moves you from a position of deficit to a position of choice. You're no longer the deficient one seeking approval. You're the discerning one, evaluating whether these people, situations, or systems deserve your participation. The awakening through rejection also involves recognizing patterns. Most Sigmas discover that their rejections weren't random events, but consistent responses to their authentic nature. They realize they've been rejected not despite their best qualities, but because of them. Their independence was seen as aloofness. Their depth was perceived as intensity. Their standards were labeled as arrogance. This pattern recognition is crucial because it prevents the emerging Sigma from falling into the trap of believing each rejection is about specific circumstances. Instead, he begins to see rejection as a filtering mechanism, the universe's way of removing incompatible elements from his path. The final aspect of awakening through rejection involves embracing the discomfort. Most men try to escape the pain of rejection as quickly as possible, rushing into new situations, new relationships, new pursuits to prove their worth. The future Sigma sits with the discomfort, uses it as fuel for self-examination, and allows it to burn away everything that isn't essentially him. This process isn't pleasant, but it's necessary, because only when you've been thoroughly rejected by what you thought you wanted can you begin to discover what you actually need. Only when you've been pushed to the margins can you see the center clearly enough to decide whether you want to be there at all. The crucible of isolation. After the awakening comes the test. Rejection might open your eyes, but isolation is where your character is truly forged. This isn't the temporary solitude of a weekend alone. This is the profound, sometimes overwhelming experience of standing completely apart from the social fabric that most men desperately cling to. The crucible of isolation is where boys are, separated from men, where pretenders are separated from authentics, and where future alphas are separated from emerging Sigmas. Because while isolation breaks the alpha, who needs an audience to validate his dominance, it strengthens the Sigma, who discovers that his power comes from within. Consider the story of David, a marketing executive who found himself completely ostracized after refusing to participate in the toxic culture at his firm. His colleagues turned against him, his so-called friends distanced themselves, and even his family questioned his decisions. For 6 months, David experienced near-complete social isolation. No invitations, no casual conversations, no sense of belonging anywhere. But something extraordinary happened during those 6 months. Stripped of all external input, David began to hear his own voice for the first time in years. Without the constant noise of other people's opinions, expectations, and judgments, he discovered thoughts, preferences, and desires he didn't even know he had. The isolation that was meant to punish him became the laboratory where he rediscovered himself. This is the paradox of the Sigma crucible. What feels like loss is actually gain. Every relationship that falls away during this period wasn't serving your authentic self. It was serving the version of you that was trying to fit in. Every opportunity that disappears wasn't aligned with your true path. It was part of the system that was holding you back. The crucible of isolation operates through several distinct phases. First comes the shock phase, where the sudden absence of social connection feels devastating. Your identity, which was partially constructed through relationships and social roles, feels unstable. This is normal and necessary. The false self must be destabilized before the true self can emerge. Next comes the void phase, where the absence of external stimulation creates a profound emptiness. Most men panic here and rush back to social connection, accepting any relationship or situation that fills the void. The emerging Sigma learns to sit with the emptiness, recognizing it not as a problem to be solved, but as space to be explored. Then comes the discovery phase, where you begin to encounter aspects of yourself that were hidden beneath layers of social conditioning. You discover what you actually enjoy when you're not performing for others. You find out what you really think when you're not echoing the crowd. You learn what you genuinely want when you're not seeking approval. The fourth phase is the testing phase, where your newfound self-knowledge is challenged by opportunities to return to old patterns. Former friends might reach out, old situations might present themselves, and the temptation to abandon your solitary journey for the familiar comfort of belonging will be intense. The future Sigma recognizes these as tests and chooses authenticity over comfort. Finally comes the integration phase, where isolation transforms from something that happens to you into something you choose. You realize that solitude isn't loneliness, it's freedom. You understand that being alone isn't abandonment, it's autonomy. You discover that standing apart isn't rejection, it's selection. But here's what makes the Sigma's experience of isolation unique. He doesn't just endure it, he masters it. While others see isolation as a temporary state to escape from, the Sigma sees it as a skill to develop. He learns to thrive in solitude, to generate his own energy, to validate his own decisions, and to find complete satisfaction in his own company. This mastery of isolation becomes one of the Sigma's greatest strengths. Because when you're genuinely comfortable alone, you never enter relationships, situations, or commitments from a position of neediness. You engage from a position of choice, strength, and abundance. The isolation crucible also teaches the future Sigma to distinguish between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is the painful awareness of disconnection. It's a cry for external validation and belonging. Being alone is a state of peaceful self-sufficiency. It's the foundation of inner strength. This distinction is crucial because it determines how you navigate future relationships. The man who fears being alone will compromise his values, accept disrespect, and cling to connections that don't serve him. The man who has mastered solitude enters every relationship as a whole person, not seeking completion, but offering value. The crucible of isolation isn't punishment for your rejection, it's preparation for your ascension. The death of external validation. The most liberating death you'll experience isn't physical, it's psychological. The death of external validation addiction is both inevitable and essential for Sigma emergence. You cannot ascend to independence while emotionally dependent on others' opinions, approval, recognition. Your entire life structured around external validation. Education trained teacher approval seeking, careers taught boss recognition chasing, social life conditioned peer acceptance craving, relationships made you dependent on partner validation. The emerging Sigma sees this pattern as prison. Sophisticated control, keeping you performing for others rather than living for yourself. Consider Alex, successful lawyer who spent 15 years building career on external metrics. Right firm, cases, car, address, everything chosen for impression value. Health scare forced re-evaluation, revealing inability to answer. What do I actually want? His identity was constructed from others' success definitions. External validation death begins with recognition, sobering realization you've lived someone else's life. Your goals aren't yours. They're what impresses others. Opinions aren't authentic. They're acceptance-seeking. Personality isn't genuine. It's performance designed for applause. The killing process operates through stages. First, identification, recognizing validation, seeking versus authentic pursuit. Brutal honesty about motivations required. Are you posting for pride or others? Success perception. Comments from belief or intelligence appearance. Second, withdrawal. Conscious removal from validation-seeking behaviors. Social media breaks, declining appearance-only events, stopping achievement sharing, done purely for recognition. Third, substitution. Replacing external validation with internal standards. Instead of, what will others think? Learn, what do I think? Seek value alignment over approval, personal growth over recognition. Fourth, testing, facing available external validation but choosing internal satisfaction. True commitment tested when crowds offer acceptance for conformity, groups offer belonging for compromise. Transformed Sigma chooses authenticity over approval. Final, transcendence. External validation becomes irrelevant rather than rejected. You don't avoid approval. You don't need it. Nice bonuses rather than essential nutrients. When you stop needing external validation, you become exponentially more attractive. Paradoxically, caring less about impressing increases impressiveness. Needing approval less makes others want to give more. Operating from complete internal validation radiates magnetic confidence. The birth of self-reliance. From external dependency, ashes rises genuine self-reliance, not surface independence of bill-paying or solo living, but profound psychological autonomy, making you unshakable. Here Sigma's real power manifests, because self-reliance isn't just self-care ability, it's becoming primary source of everything needed emotionally, intellectually, spiritually. True self-reliance encompasses multiple dimensions: practical, handling affairs; solving problems, meeting needs without depending on others; emotional, generating confidence, processing feelings, maintaining stability regardless of circumstances; intellectual, thinking own thoughts, forming opinions, trusting judgment. Against popular wisdom, most men achieve only practical dimension. They fix cars, cook meals, manage finances, but remain emotionally and intellectually dependent. The emerging Sigma develops all dimensions simultaneously, creating self-sufficiency, fortress external circumstances cannot breach. Consider Michael, entrepreneur who lost everything in business, failure costing marriage and friendships. Stripped of support network, starting over at 40, he chose building rescue capabilities within himself over seeking rescue from others. 2 years later, he developed skills, knowledge, emotional resilience he never knew possible. More importantly, he discovered being his own solution was far more satisfying than being saved. Self-reliance birth begins with necessity, situations forcing self-reliance because no external help available, but evolves into preference, choosing self-reliance even when help offered because you've discovered power and satisfaction of being your own resource. This fundamentally changes problem approach. Instead of who can help, ask how can I handle this myself? Seek skills over rescue, focus on strengthening foundation over finding something to lean on. The process involves developing Sigma skill set, comprehensive capabilities making you functionally independent. Practical skills: maintenance, financial management, health optimization; emotional skills, stress management, conflict resolution, self-motivation; intellectual skills, critical thinking, research methodology, decision frameworks. Real self-reliance. Power isn't skills themselves, it's mindset created. Knowing you can handle whatever comes approaches life from strength rather than vulnerability. Take calculated risks, trusting consequence handling ability. Speak truth without fearing reactions. Set boundaries without needing approval to maintain them. Self-reliance transforms relationships. Entering connections from strength rather than need shifts entire dynamics. You're offering value, not seeking completion. Choosing worthy investment, not looking for salvation. Not afraid of losing relationships because you know you'll be fine alone. The mastery of solitude. Most men fear solitude, mistaking it for loneliness. Sigma masters solitude, recognizing it as ultimate luxury, uninterrupted access to own mind, energy, potential. This mastery isn't accidental. It's deliberately cultivated skill, becoming foundation of all Sigma power. Solitude mastery differs from simply being comfortable alone. It's using solitude as growth, creativity, strategic thinking tool, transforming alone time from endurance into leverage, making solitude so rich and productive you protect rather than escape it. The journey begins with fundamental reframe. Instead of seeing alone time as empty space needing filling, see it as premium real estate for personal development. Instead of viewing solitude as isolation from others, see it as connection with yourself. Instead of experiencing alone time as punishment, experience it as privilege. Consider Richard, CEO who discovered solitude mastery power during forced isolation following major business setback. While competitors networked and deal made, Richard spent 6 months in near-complete solitude, reading, thinking, planning. Re-emerging, his strategic thinking had evolved so dramatically he not only recovered losses, but achieved breakthrough success. Competitors couldn't understand or replicate. Mastery process involves distinct phases. First, tolerance, learning. To be alone without discomfort. Sitting with own thoughts without external stimulation need. Being present with yourself without judgment or escape urges. Second, appreciation. Valuing unique benefits only solitude provides. In solitude, think without interruption, feel without performance, explore ideas without explanation or defense to others, appreciating solitude as rare, valuable resource. Third, optimization, structuring solitude for maximum benefit, creating rituals, environments, practices, making alone time exponentially productive. Treating solitude with same respect and intentionality reserved for most important meetings. Fourth, protection, actively defending solitude from external demands and internal impulses to fill with activity. Saying no to invitations compromising solitude time. Resisting phone checking, internet browsing, mindless consumption during premium solitude periods. Final, mastery, using solitude as primary tool for personal evolution, creative breakthrough, strategic advantage. Solitude becomes competitive edge, insight source, pathway to capabilities others cannot develop while constantly engaging external inputs. The master of solitude develops sovereign presence, quality of being completely self-contained yet powerfully attractive. Mastering solitude radiates completeness others find magnetic, don't need their attention but comfortable receiving it, don't require validation but can meaningfully engage perspectives. The ascension to Sigma consciousness. Everything converges here: rejection, isolation, independence, self-reliance, solitude, mastery synthesizing into something greater than parts sum. Sigma consciousness isn't just mindset or lifestyle, it's fundamental transformation in world existence. The moment realizing you've become what most men seek their entire lives but never find: truly free. Sigma consciousness is ontological independence, your being itself no longer dependent on external circumstances, relationships, validation. You exist as complete, self-determining entity interacting with world from sovereignty rather than neediness. Ascension doesn't happen gradually. It happens in crystalline clarity moments where everything suddenly makes sense. Every rejection was redirection. Every isolation moment was preparation. Every loss was gain disguised as pain. You see perfect design in what seemed random suffering. Consider James's final transformation. After years of rejection, isolation, internal development, he faced devastating former self situation, losing major business contract, ending long relationship, facing family criticism simultaneously. Instead of breaking down, James felt unprecedented complete peace. External circumstances couldn't touch core identity or derail trajectory. He'd become unshakable. Unshakability is Sigma consciousness hallmark. External events don't define you. You respond rather than react, adapt rather than break, use challenges as fuel rather than energy drains. Sigma consciousness operates through key principles: non-attachment, holding goals, relationships, circumstances lightly rather than desperately gripping, caring without dependency. Want good outcomes, but don't need them for well-being. Self-authority, making decisions based on own analysis and values rather than external pressure. Become your own authority figure, judge, direction source. Don't rebel against external authority. Simply don't require it. Dynamic equilibrium, maintaining stability through change rather than despite it. Like surfers using wave energy for balance, use external challenges, strengthening internal stability. Change becomes ally rather than enemy. Strategic patience. Understanding real power accumulates slowly, operates on longer timelines than most comprehend. Not trying to win every battle or prove yourself in every situation. Playing longer game, with bigger stakes. Conscious choice, recognizing responses to circumstances are always choices, even when not feeling like choices. This awareness gives tremendous power because you're never truly victim, always active reality creation participant. Most remarkable aspect, relationship transformation with others. Become simultaneously more independent and more capable of genuine connection, because you need nothing from others, offer pure value. Because not seeking completion through relationships, engage authentically without hidden agendas. This creates paradox others find mysterious. More independent you become, more attractive to others. Less you need approval, more they want to give. More comfortable alone, more others want your presence. Sigma consciousness ascension isn't growth end, it's true growth beginning. Only when completely grounded in yourself can you safely explore human potential heights. Only when unshakable in core can you take extraordinary achievement risks. Ultimate Sigma development truth. Not becoming something you're not, becoming completely what you are. Not adding personality layers, stripping everything inauthentic until only essential remains. What remains is unshakable. As we conclude this journey through the Sigma transformation, remember this fundamental truth. Your rejection was not random. Your isolation was not punishment. Your struggles were not mistakes. They were the precise experiences required to forge you into the man you were meant to become. The Sigma male isn't born. He's created through a specific alchemy of pain, reflection, and conscious choice. Every moment you felt rejected by the crowd was actually the universe redirecting you toward your true path. Every period of isolation was preparing you for the kind of independence that most men will never achieve. This transformation isn't optional for the true Sigma. It's mandatory. Because only through experiencing the full spectrum of rejection and isolation can you develop the unshakable self-knowledge and independence that defines Sigma consciousness. But here's what separates this channel from every other self-improvement content out there. We don't just talk about transformation, we provide the roadmap. We don't just inspire, we instruct. And we don't just motivate, we prepare you for the reality of what Sigma evolution actually requires. If this resonates with your experience, if you recognize yourself in this journey, then you're exactly where you need to be. Subscribe to Official Sigma Male, because this is just the beginning. We're building something here, a community of men who understand that true power comes not from fitting in, but from standing apart. Not from being accepted by everyone, but from being unshakable in yourself. Hit that subscribe button, because the next video in this series will show you exactly how to accelerate your own Sigma transformation. The path is clear, the destination is worth it, and your journey starts now.